Hi everyone, I am Irina Sapit. Welcome to the UX Chronicles. Today I'm here with Yuki. Yuki and I went to Stanford together. We did the same program, Learning Design and Technology from School of Education. And hi Yuki, welcome.
Hi, long time no see. I guess I can start with a quick self-intro.
Yeah, we're excited to have you here.
Awesome. Uh, so my name is Yuqi, and I work at Regal Rexnord as a UX researcher. Regal is a manufacturing company. So everything that you don't see but power your daily life, like your HVAC unit and like machines that manufacture your favorite food. So all of those has the products from my company. So I'm a researcher for the manufacturing company right now. And prior to Regal, I was working at Twilio and Tangible Play. So my journey has shifted quite a bit over the past 3 years from designing and researching for children's educational games to customer data platform and then now manufacturing company.
Thank you for that introduction, Yuki. So I know that you did your degree in psychology before going to Stanford and then went to education, learning design and technology. So how did your education, your degree help you get into UX research?
I would say on a very surface level, if you look at job descriptions, a lot of them would say like bachelor's in social science, psychology. So a relevant degree is definitely, I guess, the very first step of getting noticed. Because some companies do a little filtering on your major. So I think psychology and education are both relevant programs, so that definitely helps. And on like a more foundational like skill set level, I would say psychology builds a great foundational skill set for me as a UX researcher because I got to learn how to observe people, how to analyze their behaviors, and also all the theories about like motivations and human behaviors, and most importantly, analytics. So I didn't take too many advanced classes, but I was pretty much in the lab working on project for the entire 4 years during undergrad. So I did have a lot of hands-on skills for doing analytics, which was really helpful for like survey analytics or just doing game analytics in general. I think LDT was definitely more of a like domain specific because it's for education, right? I was really interested in educational products and I always wanted to design and research for educational games. So I think LDT is more relevant to the qualitative side of my research skill set because it's the first time that I took a qualitative research class. And also we were able to do our LDT project during the time. So we apply what we learned from class directly to our LDT projects. So I think that was definitely a highlight when interviewing for positions after the graduate program. Because over time they would say, oh, so what kind of project have you done before? And what's your skill set? Like, are you more of a qualitative researcher or quantitative or mixed method? And then I would tell them about my LDT project and how I talk to parents and children and how to analyze their behaviors and preferences for games. So I think that's about my education background. And also most importantly, LDT is what got me know about Osmo. So that's my first company after the grad program. So I think that's a direct link between the program and my first job.
Mhm. Yeah, definitely. Even I got started with UX research at Stanford. I knew about this and I knew I wanted to go into UX research and all the research classes that we took, different classes
Yeah.
from
Yep.
school and our master's project. And like you said, even my first internship and job I got through as a UX researcher through Stanford, through networking and everything. So it was definitely a stepping stone into this world. Yeah.
For sure. Yeah.
And I know you have worked as a UX researcher for a few years now in different companies. So how has your role as UX researcher or just the world of UX research evolved over time?
Yeah, I want to say I think both the type of work and the scope of work has definitely changed a lot. So at my first job, so Osmo or AKA Tangible Play, so I was working in a small research team, super technique, and we got to learn from each other. But also at that time, I had a really awesome research manager, Heidi. So she owned the research roadmap.
Mhm.
So as a beginner level UX researcher, I think a lot of the times that I was looking for her guidance and trying to get project demands through her. So we kind of work as a research hub within the company. So which also means that I didn't really get to design my own project. And I also think the communicating with stakeholder, that part was a little compromised over time because we already have the request pipeline built up. So people request a project, and then we'll discuss what kind of method we should do, what's the timeline, and who would be leading that project, and then done. So didn't have to think too much about how to manage my project because I had this awesome research manager to already plan out everything. And also didn't really need to think about resources or do I need to talk with vendors, that kind of thing. But then at Twilio had a relatively higher, I would say higher UX research maturity because they apparently had a much bigger research team. And each UX researcher was in charge of also like a one perspective, not perspective. It's a little hard to say, like one function or one product focus, more directly working with one product team. And sometimes you have to support other teams. But I was there really briefly, just for a little more than 2 months, I want to say 3 months. So didn't get to experience too much, but definitely there are a lot of benefits of living in a bigger research team because just given the depth of the resources that you have, there are also a lot of things that you don't have to think about. But also that time I was the only researcher for my team, right? Even though I have other like research companions. But then I have to craft out my research roadmap. So I have to think about, as I'm working on my first project, I have to think about what's the next, what is needed for the team, and how to help the team to find the right market fit for the product. So there are a lot of things that are constantly running in the back of my head. So you cannot be just get on this project, finish it, and done with it. But now you have to think about like what's coming in the next months and what's coming in the next 3 months and what's coming by the end of the year, what kind of thing you have to deliver. Right now at the current position, it's probably the biggest change. I never imagined that I would own my research roadmap. It's just a lot of things that you have to think about. And now I have like different types of stakeholders, like for example, marketing and product and also sales. Sometimes in some cases, so you really have to talk with everyone to get their inputs so that you have a roadmap that meets everyone's needs. And then you still have to prioritize because you cannot say yes to everything. And then you have to think what's making sense to the organization, what's gonna drive the highest priority within the organization. So the research piece alone is not sufficient anymore. It's just a lot of communications, a lot of planning ahead, and also requires a lot of business acumen, which I think probably need more improvement on this. Because before UX research was often not tied directly to revenue generation or like bringing more customers. It was more about experience. At least in my experience, it was more about customer experience and satisfaction. But now I feel like I'm in a position that I have to think about if I do this project, what kind of value it's going to bring to the opportunity, and what kind of value I bring to the cross-functional teams, and ultimately how that's going to convert to the number of new customers, and what kind of new opportunities I'm bringing to different regions, to different teams, and ultimately the dollar sign.
Yeah.
What is the money that I'm bringing to the organization? So I think the type of work, scope of work has definitely changed a lot. But that's also because I'm gaining more experience. So now I have more autonomy, but also have to think more in depth about what kind of project I'm doing.
Yeah, definitely. I think I have also seen it change that before UX research was all about making it easier for the customers, understanding the customers' needs. But as the economy has changed of the world and everything, it is directly linked to the revenue generation and how UX researchers can help in revenue generation, not just helping the users, but helping the company as well. So that is a very significant shift that we have seen in this UX world, definitely. And there are other challenges too. So what are some of the common UX challenges in UX research that you've faced?
I would say, I think one of the common challenges, especially if you're working at a startup or working at a company that never had UX researcher before, which is pretty much my scenario with my current company. So apparently they have other functions that are doing a part of the UX researcher job. So for example, they have analysts who are doing customer surveys. So they will be analyzing satisfaction surveys and send out like NPS survey, but that's different than UX research. So I think I'm technically the first UX researcher in the company. So a lot of the time I have to explain what kind of things that I do as a researcher and how I can help their team. So it just takes a lot of time, takes project by project. When you get to work with someone and when you deliver the actual value to her or his team, I think that's kind of the show and tell, right? That you demonstrate that your research will be beneficial to certain priority. But then it's just it's hard to define when if you just talk like in a meeting for 10 minutes. It's hard to say because also as a UX researcher, I think there are a lot of jargons and terminologies that we are not aware that other people may not necessarily understand. So for example, I think one time I started talking about like more statistics side, it looks like, oh, this result is not significant.
Yeah.
You'll be like, what do you mean by significant? Like, tell me more. And then you really have to talk in other people's languages and tell them why it's important to know that this result is not significant or significant. Because if I just lay the math there on the slide, doesn't help anyone. And also doesn't help people understand what my role is about. So I think getting people to understand what we do as a researcher and how we can benefit to their job functions or their KPI, I think that's definitely a common challenge, especially for companies that never have a UX research team before. I think another common challenge, I would say, be project management, especially if you are in a relatively small team where you have a lot of research requests. So you constantly have to balance between all the demands because you just, like I said before, you cannot help anyone. If you make everyone happy, maybe you are not going to be happy because you are going to have really poor work-life balance in that case. And the quality of the results are just not going to be, it's just not going to meet the standard. I think project management is definitely something that I'm trying to improve. I think before it was more directly managed by my manager or managed by the product team. I think that's the case at Osmo and also at Twilio. But now it's like, because I'm owning my own research map, so it's just a little hard to tell which months I'm working on certain things. And I can only handle maybe 4 projects.
Yeah.
I think even 4 is a little exaggeration, but I can only handle a certain number of projects at the same time to ensure the quality of my work. And also making sure that I can deliver the results on time so that when I present, it's before the decision making happens. And if I present something that after a key decision has been made, then it's making my research pointless, right? You kind of just eliminate the value that you can show to the team. So I think project management is definitely difficult. Also, a lot of cases depends on how much resources and budget that I have. Because if I have enough resources, I mean like the money. If I have the budget, maybe I can talk with a vendor that I have worked in the past. Say, I'll be recruiting the customers for interviews, but I need someone to facilitate half of the focus group and interviews. And then I can talk with a vendor who I have worked with in the past and get him to quote their budget, quote their cost and select one vendor to work with me for the next 2 or 3 months. I think this type of thing I didn't really have to think about before. So now I guess it's, I know I said project management at first, but now it's really a management of your time, your energy level, but also the resources that you have in hand.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally resonate with what you said. Being a UX researcher, sometimes you have to wear just so many hats and managing time and just managing your clients, your customers, the stakeholders, everyone involved, and the aspect of storytelling once you do everything and how do you present it to the stakeholders clearly so that your research actually makes sense and is helping in the decision making, definitely. So, what tools do you find indispensable for conducting UX research? What has been your favorite tools so far?
Favorite tool, let me think. I would say Alter.ai. That's probably our old friend, even from the LDT time. I know a lot of us were using Alter.ai or some other similar transcription tools. It's just we cannot rely on our memory. That's also a typical misconception of conducting interviews or focus group or any kind of qualitative research. People will be like, oh, you just need to spend 1 hour talking with the customer or the target audience. And you don't need to spend any time organizing the notes. That's definitely not true. I can take notes about talking to people, but I'm a human myself. I also make mistakes. There are things that I would think those are important after taking some notes and talking to the customer. But if I look at my transcription, I would say, actually it was really wrong. This person apparently was more concerned about other aspects of the product, not the thing that I memorized and that I found most interesting. So I think having a transcription tool, either Alter.ai or something else, that's definitely important to every UX researcher, especially qualitative researcher. I think Auto.ai, I just love it because I have a limited budget. I think it works for the budget that I have. And so it had an AI feature. I think that was probably rolled out last year. So now it allows you to compare, to ask a question to the AI chatbot, to compare the notes from different interviews that you upload to the platform. So I think that was really helpful because sometimes after having multiple projects spanning across like 2 years, you don't necessarily remember that, oh, actually a customer last year from a different project also talk about the same pinpoint. But having this AI feature available, you can just ask, so I want to compare from last January to now, how many customers have mentioned about a price point, about the pricing. And then it's going to bring up all the interviews that I have uploaded to the platform that have talked about pricing. So I think that was definitely a major benefit of Auto.ai. I think other tools, I think I'm pretty flexible with the tool that I use. There's some analytics tool that I use, but may not be the best tool for everyone. Like I still use R because I like R's visualization libraries. As you said, like storytelling is definitely a key skill that all the UX researchers should have. So I found R to be able to provide really beautiful visualizations. But I know a lot of people love Python, so don't really have a strong opinion on it. Just use whatever you're comfortable with. And also a tool or not necessarily a tool, a research repository. It's not for conducting research, but I think it's something that every research team should have because you can consolidate all the research, either notes, timeline, or roadmap, or like key findings and deliverables. That's a central hub that you should have to consolidate everything together. Because also it's a chance for you to reflect on the research that you have done and also make it digestible for the stakeholders because you can always share a link from the repository with your stakeholder. But I think that's something I'm still building. I'm still trying to find the best tool. So if you have any recommendations, I would love to listen to it. I've tried some different ones, but I haven't found one that really working well.
Yeah, I think having these tools are super important to just even cut your time and just help you with these. I just use simple tools like SurveyMonkey or Notion to put my notes in, nothing like extraordinary tools, any special tools that I'm using. But I'll definitely link the tools that you've mentioned below so that it helps others as well. And one thing that you mentioned that that was such a spark moment for me was while doing all these research studies, people have like all these biases in their mind. And like you said, when we go to talk to customers, we already have bias sometimes that, oh, this is what they're trying to say. But going back to the notes and reading the transcription and everything, then you're like, no, that's not what they said. Like, this is completely different from what I was thinking. So that is also sometimes so important to have that check and balance. And some of these tools makes it easier for us to just keep track of that, definitely.
I think like the tools that you mentioned, I mean, I use Cortex a lot and also SurveyMonkey. So I think these tools are almost like our second brain.
Yeah.
We only have one brain, but with all the tools, it's augmenting our ability to capture accurate insights from our audience.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. So, in the future, are there any future plans for you? How do you want to grow as a UX researcher in the next few years?
Yeah, I'm kind of debating. So I'll be more of an independent contributor, more in an IC role for so long, but now kind of shifting to kind of a manager role because now I have a data scientist reporting to me.
Oh.
So it's kind of an odd structure, I would say, because oftentimes you don't see a data scientist or data analyst reporting to a UX researcher. But I think the reason why we have this kind of team structure is I think oftentimes, I mean, in the past, I've done more UX research, but I started to do more market research to provide strategic recommendations to the senior leadership in my company. So that requires I have to bring the best from qualitative research and analytics together because qualitative research alone, it will always be criticized and people will have a critical lens on it, saying that, oh, it's if you only talk to 10 customers, how should I believe it? It's like, no, qualitative research is not about providing you something that most solid in the world. It's about the depths, I mean the rationales, because you can always do a survey with 500 people, but you don't always get to probe around their rationales behind certain answers. And also analytics, if you have the quality data, if you have high quality data, you get the result. But if the quality of the data is not there, or if it's a data point that you never collected, you also don't get to see the rationales behind it. And oftentimes data is more about the behaviors that are happening, well, in my case, our e-commerce platforms, but not really. So after their e-commerce journey is ended, after they're not on the website, what's happening there? We don't know. And then the data doesn't go beyond whatever is happening on the website, right? So I think we need to combine the best practices and the best possible insights from qualitative research and analytics. So that's why I'm working with my data scientists so that we can piece together the puzzle. We'll have rationales and insights from individual users, but we also have at scale what the data is telling us so that we have a full story to present to the leadership. So I think persuading people is difficult, especially with only one side of the story. So I'm trying to be more comprehensive. So I think moving forward, I think I'll be managing my own project to managing a small team. And hopefully we can grow the team, maybe more researchers and or maybe more data scientists, depending on the need of the company. I think for myself, well, I think I kind of mentioned that before. I think the business acumen side is still a little lacking because it's a new industry. Manufacturing is not something that was familiar. I think I've tried a lot. I try to talk to different stakeholders within the company, trying to understand how it operates from the sales team, like how they sell to customers, from the big customers to talk to smaller customers, what's our way of operating. And also from the product side, apparently I didn't know anything about our products before joining the company. So it's definitely a lot of learning moments by just talking with people and even going into some of the local customers. I went to their store to observe how they operate and how they sell to their customer. Because in the world of B2B, it's a pretty long chain until you reach the end user. So we are the manufacturer, and then we have distributors, we have smaller distributors, we have contractors, and then we have end users. So that would be like homeowners or whoever install our product on their machine. So it's a really long chain, and you really have to know each layer of this whole model. So I think for me, improving the business acumen, meaning that I have to understand the company's operation, but also understand the market landscape. So definitely a lot of room for improvement, a lot of room for learning. So I wouldn't say trying to be an expert, but I'm trying to be an expert so that I can do my work.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so interesting. Thank you for sharing that. Like, once you become UX researcher, it does not stop there. There's so much more you can go beyond the field and just be expert of. So you mentioned something about leaning more towards being a market researcher now. So what is the main difference or some of the differences between being a market researcher versus UX researcher? Because sometimes like people interchange that word even as job description. So would love to know more.
For sure. Yeah, I think they are in some cases a little interchangeable. Now, I know people define it differently. For example, some people will be referring me as the market researcher in the company. But technically my title is UX researcher. So sometimes I'm a little questioning myself, like what kind of researcher I am, or does it even matter? But I do have the UX research and UX research, market research, UX research, in some cases policy research in my pocket. So I'm still a researcher. It just depends on the scenario. I will choose the appropriate method to achieve my goal. I think for me, market research, if we're talking about market research, I'm thinking more about understanding the market fit of a product, like to see if the market even wants the product before you push it out to the market. Does the market need it? Or what's the competitive advantage of this product? What are some of the competitors in the market? And year over year, what is the trend in the market landscape? And which ones are the new like top competitors emerging from the market, and understand how that's going to impact my company's product portfolio. I think that's kind of the market side. And UX research to me, maybe I'm a little too narrow mandate, but to me, UX research is more about understanding the experience of the customer's experience of the products or of the whatever digital journey that we're providing. But I think you really have to be good at both, especially in the current climate. Like you said, a lot of job descriptions are basically saying that you have to know both. It's not even a bonus, but you have to know both, especially if you are the only UX researcher or you have a small UX research team at the company. So a lot of the times they are intertwined, and knowing one but don't understand the other, it's not gonna make you go really far. Yeah, I think at the bigger companies, they are more separated. And then you will have UX researcher, you have market researcher. They just do their own thing. But at the smaller companies, I mean, most of the companies are not like Google or Amazon, and then you really have to do both.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, thank you so much for that. And I know we're almost to the time. And before you leave, do you have any tips or any suggestions for future UXers who want to go into this field?
Yeah, I think I feel like shouldn't be. Um, I don't want to sound too depressing. I know the job market is really tough, but you really just have to try really hard. And a lot of people are really shy about their background or their skill set. Because I've met some people who are new to this field or trying to break into the UX research field. And they say, oh, I don't have much experience. Oh, no, you have experience because all of the projects that you just described to me just prove to me that you have a good potential to be an awesome qualitative researcher or a quantitative or mixed method UX researcher. People are really shy about selling their skill set. But I think to become a good UX researcher, or not even just for UX researcher, or any job field, you have to be a good salesperson. You're essentially selling your skill set when you're applying to a job. And when you're at your job, when you get the job, you don't stop selling. You're selling your research as a product to all the cross-functional leaders. Because a lot of people don't think that, oh, I really don't want to wait another 2 weeks to just test out this feature. I want to launch now. Why do I have to wait? Tell me. Or like, why do I have to understand the market fit? Like based on my domain knowledge, I know this will be a success in the market. It's like, hold on, but we want to understand the market first. Maybe the market that, in your experience, it's a great product for sure. Maybe the market really wants it. But don't you want to know which state in the United States want the product the most? Which state has less competition that will help you test the water? You probably don't want to roll out the product all the same to all states in the United States. So there are a lot of ways that you have to sell your skill set, sell your research product, and also sell your value to your stakeholders. So I think for all the future UX researchers, try to be a good salesperson, even if that's against your personality.
Yeah, thank you so much for giving us this time.
Yeah, thank you.